They were going to find their friends and neighbors
Right.
and get them to the polls. That's
People they
all.
already knew.
Exactly.
That was the
People-
key.
That's it. It's like, hey, it's election day. And the thing in 1960, that was election day. We now have election 2 weeks.
Right.
So, we can at any point say to our neighbors, hey, have you voted yet? No? Let's drive down to the city clerk's office. And
You're watching On the Issues with Chris and Mike, a speakeasy conversation brought to you by CooleyConservatives.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the On the Issues with Chris and Mike. Mr. Hitch, welcome back.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be back.
How's it been going? It's been a couple of months now.
It has. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of months. And we had an election in the midst of that didn't go so well, but wasn't that much of a surprise. I think that, when Supreme Court elections, especially when the Supreme Court elections were set for April, it was back when it was believed and intended that those would be nonpartisan. The partisan races would be in November. The nonpartisan races like superintendent of public schools was supposed to be nonpartisan. The Supreme Court is supposed to be a nonpartisan. That is not the case anymore and will never be the case again. So I think we are at a point where it is time for us to move the Supreme Court elections to November.
And just embracing the reality that these are now partisan races.
Exactly. As we talked about, I encouraged both of our candidates the past 2 times, Maria and Brad, to run these like governor's races. Go out and talk specifically about the issues, how you're going to vote on those issues, where you stand on them, all those type of things, because that's what the voters are looking for. And neither of them would do it, and both of them got crushed.
Yeah.
So, that's not the only reason, but it is a significant, it has a significant impact on the voters and whether or not they're going to show up, whether or not they can get excited about you, or whether or not you can show them the concerns that we have for the other side. So,
yeah, the biggest lesson that I think about too is just the ground game.
Yeah.
We have got to do a better job at ground game.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about this too, that one of the things that I put on the board for us to at least begin talking around is this idea that's in scripture, Matthew 9:37, where the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few.
Yeah.
And that has inspired me to start up the Victory Squad. If anybody's out there wants to take a look at that on CooleyConservatives.com, there's a little link to get to it. But we really do need to find more people to help. And there's so many different ways people can help.
Yeah.
You've been involved in campaigns for a very long time. Actually, your campaign was the very first one I ever got involved in.
Well, thank
you. Many, many years ago.
Great.
So, you just learn so much over time, but it's something that is learned. It doesn't just come naturally. It takes time. It takes experience. It takes a little bit of practice.
Absolutely.
And if we're going to be ready for the big game in November, to use a football analogy, we have got to start practicing. We've got to start exercising these muscles right now.
Yeah. And it takes trial and error. It takes, we've all
learned.
Good
point.
We were both on the ballot and we both lost, in the past. You learn an awful lot that way. It's a lot more fun to win, I'll admit it, but
I wouldn't know.
Well, someday you will. I know you will. But it's you have to learn what it takes. And the Democrats have figured this out a long time ago with their community organizers. And the difference was that through their NGOs, the non-governmental organizations, they were using tax money to pay people to go organize for the Democratic Party. Completely illegal, but
massive money laundering system that they have.
Totally, and completely illegal. And it's not anything that we've been able to match or stop.
Well, I think the biggest issue that we have is that we actually have morals. There are things we won't do because they're just wrong.
Right. We do have people who will just not do things. That's true. Take pot shots at the president. We won't engage in that kind of violence.
Oh my word!
It's that kind of stuff that again, I have throughout my career in politics, I was always frustrated with those who said, there's really no difference in the parties. There is the uniparty, there is this all type of thing. And while I admit it looks as though in some instances governing is in a bipartisan way opposed to what we would like it to be. It's different than what we'd like to be. And so we just blame the uniparty. The fact is that there are drastic differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, especially at the grassroots level. Those of us who are out working and campaigning and doing what we need to do on the Republican side versus the Democratic side have very different tactics, very different motives, very different ways of going about things. And and very different issues that we stand for. They really have capitalized on the the angst of the younger
Yeah.
generation, and
I call
mainly
it the politics of envy.
yes, yeah, and they've cultivated it. I mean, they've
Yep.
planted these seeds 30 years ago, and
Exactly.
it's coming home to roots. So it is a difficult hill to climb. I give you great credit for the effort that you're putting into it. I wish there were more like you, because we do need individuals who are doing this. But the ideas that you have and the effort that people need to put forth are not new. They've been around,
Exactly.
you have the video that goes back to Ronald Reagan explaining it in
That's
California
right.
back in the 1960 election. But the earliest that I know of was Abraham Lincoln, who outlined, the grids and the precincts and the precinct captains, and go out and make sure you know how everybody's going to vote and make sure they've gotten to the polls.
Yep.
This was the Lincoln campaign. So it's not new. It's just, it takes work. It takes effort. It's the blocking and tackling that nobody's that excited about doing, but is essential if you're going to be victorious.
That is so well said. I mean, these are the things that it takes to win these campaigns. And it used to be you could rely on enough volunteers coming forward. And I mean, now it's hard to find anybody who's willing to actually step up and do.
Right.
Everybody wants to sit on their couch and yell at the TV. They'll watch cable news all day long and gripe about what's wrong with the system.
Yeah.
But they won't get off their couch and go make a phone call to their neighbors, or just to text message to their friends and family, or God forbid, walk up and down the street and talk to people, get them to sign nomination papers, or help them get to the polls. The Victory Squad, that video from the 60s was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It just hits everything that we need to do.
Right.
It's just we have slightly different technology. We're a little bit more sophisticated these days.
Right.
But it's all the same concept.
Right. And to watch that video, if anybody hasn't done it, go on to Cooley Conservatives and see that video. It's interesting to watch. It's funny to see, back in the 60s, John Wayne and Ronald Reagan. But
before he was even governor of California,
before he was anything.
It's an amazing video.
It wasn't that far after he was a Democrat. I mean, he switched over to being a Republican right around that time. And it's fun to just see, and how excited they get that they were able to find 2 or 3 votes. They found 2 or 3 votes, and they're excited about that. That's the kind of excitement that we need to have, is we need to be willing to do. I had an opportunity to talk with Becky Clayfish, our former lieutenant governor, just a couple of weeks ago, and she and I have been good friends for a long time. She's doing the Lord's work in trying to recruit candidates
at the grassroots level.
In the assembly. She's trying to recruit candidates all over the place. And we were discussing how challenging that's been. In some districts, she's had 8, 9, 10 people say no. We've good names that we thought would be willing to do it, good candidates that would be willing to do it, and they're like, no, they just don't want to do it. And I threw this out there almost, I was half joking, but as I thought about it, I'm like, it's interesting. I think in the Democrat, and especially the socialist Democrat point of view, their view of what they want this country to be, I believe at this point they love their country more than we do. They're willing to do so much more for the country that they want and the country they believe in than we are. We've gotten spoiled because we have Donald Trump as president. Perhaps we've gotten spoiled because we've had both houses of the Congress, and we're just frustrated that they're not doing everything that we want them to do and get everything accomplished. And so because of that frustration, they're like, well, I'm just not going to be that active. The party's the same, uniparty, blah, 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 blah. I'm so sick of hearing it.
Every excuse in the book.
But the other side, the socialist Democrats are taking over our major cities. That's not going to sit around. That's going to move into our suburbs. The younger people of this country are absolutely convinced, because they have been taught that they do not have a role in the American dream. The American dream is out of reach. They cannot accomplish it. That is a lie from the pit of hell.
Yeah.
The American
and they're
dream,
seducing them into these Marxist ideas, these politics of envy.
Correct. Yes. The American dream is available for everybody, and it can be accomplished. It does take work. It does take a change in your goals and your views. You're not going to start in a $500,000 house. There's no question about it. And if that's all you have in your neighborhood, then you have to find somewhere else to go to start. But it is possible, and you have to budget. And you have to do all the things that we've had to do throughout all the generations as to how we figured out how.
There's no easy button.
Correct. There is no easy button. And so I am concerned that, as that flippant comment, may in fact be true, that the socialist Democrats who oppose ICE as drastically as they do, who believe that there is no role for them in the American dream, they have no ability to achieve it,
Yeah.
all of those things, what they want to achieve, what they want to accomplish as far as the socialist dream for the United States of America, they care about that more than we care about retaining the democracy and capitalism and everything that we know that's made this country great. And if you're not willing to get off the couch to, well, first of all, vote. I mean, my God,
Of
vote.
all things, just
Well,
vote.
you're right. But if you're not willing to, in fact, contact a neighbor, distribute a nomination paper, there's so many little things.
Just
that you
make
can
a
do.
phone call.
Correct. I mean, that is essential, and it will prove once again that the American people care about their country, care
Yeah.
about the role that we have, not only each of us have in this country, but in this world.
Well, then let's talk about that a little bit, because as you say over and over again, elections do have consequences.
Indeed.
And the consequence of sitting on our couches for too long, you can see it in New York City right now.
Oh yeah.
Riots against law enforcement.
Right.
When was that ever a thing?
Yeah. I don't know.
That is a direct consequence of that election.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we've certainly seen that turn against the boys in blue. We've seen that turn in our lifetime, in just the last 10, 15 years. This whole idea of defund the police, it was laughable when it first came out. I mean,
we thought it was a joke.
Exactly. The concept of we don't need police. We're going to we're going to get rid of any law enforcement, and we're going to go in with social workers or whatever their plan was early on. We laughed at it because it was so inherently ridiculous that we didn't think any thinking person would actually believe this. And now not only do they believe it, they're running our cities.
But that's the thing too, I think, that is most diabolical about all of this, is that their efforts on the other side, they overwhelm us.
Mhm.
And they cause us to just give up and I'm just going to stay on my couch and watch movies. Why bother actually working to help the country at all?
Right.
They just give up.
Yeah.
And that means the other side wins
Right.
every single time.
Right.
And that is the consequence of the elections. We have got to stop. We've got to turn that around. And again, like I said, I think a ground game, getting people engaged in taking part of the process, even if they've never done it before. Like I said, one phone call,
Mhm.
2 neighbors talk to. Let's start somewhere and
Right.
start exercising these muscles again.
Well, the victory squad that we saw, in 1960 in California, it wasn't so much that they were going to convince the Republicans to come out and vote. They were going to find their friends and neighbors
Right.
and get them to the polls.
People
That's
they
all.
already knew.
Exactly.
That was the key.
That's it. It's like, hey, it's election day. And the thing in 1960, there was election day. We now have election 2 weeks.
Right.
So, we can at any point say to our neighbors, hey, have you voted yet? No? Let's drive down to the city clerk's office and take care of it. Let's get it done. There will be no line. There will be no delay.
Yeah.
We can just go get that done. And on election day, you can just forget it. Or, watch those people in their lines. And especially if it's snowing and sleeting in November, you can be just sitting and knowing that your vote has already been in and it's been counted. That is essential. We have to embrace and activate an early voting system that is going to get people that are like-minded, that are Republicans, who are conservatives, who understand the importance of this election and the role that we play in it. We're going to help get them to the polls.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. The early voting thing, there's so much controversy around it, but it is the law right now.
Right.
So let's embrace it. Let's utilize it.
Yep.
And then once we've achieved enough power to make changes back to the right way of doing things, I mean, but we're not going to do anything if we're not in power, if we don't have the votes.
Right.
I disappointed that I lost the county board election this year.
Yep.
And I see the county board going in directions that I would not have allowed that to happen.
Right.
I keep saying these are the consequences of elections on these podcasts every week.
Indeed.
Had I been there, I would have done something different, but I'm not there. I have no power.
Right.
All I can do is get in front of this microphone and try to convince people, give the right people power next time.
Speaking of elections have consequences, and you've been talking about it for the last several weeks, it's the activity that's going on in La Crosse, the criminal activity that's going on in La Crosse.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a direct connection to the very liberal viewpoints of the people who've gotten on the city council and, of course, the mayor.
Yep.
I mean, the city of La Crosse is in a spiral that I'm not sure they're going to be able to pull out of until we have new leadership there. And it's not a surprise that every other part of the community or every other part of the county is growing and people are fleeing La Crosse. It's not
Exactly.
a shock. I mean, it's, as we've talked about, you can Google people leaving, just put in people leaving, and Google populates either Illinois or California. They're leaving those two states because of the horrible liberal leadership. Now it's New York.
Yeah.
Now everybody in New York, I mean, pretty soon we will, obviously we've seen the mayor of Seattle say, go ahead, bye-bye.
Yep.
Fine.
Basically just kicked out Starbucks.
Right, exactly. I honestly don't know, Chris, what the end game is. What are they thinking? What is their plan? Do they really think that there's somehow going to be tax money that's going to be available for their utopia after people who actually earn the money are gone?
My biggest concern is that they are so Marxist now on the other side of the aisle that they will just keep taking more from those of us who are earning it.
The difference is, I agree, but the difference is we're not the Soviet Union. There is no Politburo that will sit there and determine it. We can leave.
Good point.
You know, we can walk. And obviously, Florida
Voting with our feet.
Absolutely. Florida is exploding in their population.
Yeah.
I mean, those states that have no income tax, those states that have no lunacy, like we see in Washington State and in New England states and California and Illinois. I mean, in New York especially. I mean, those areas, people are simply leaving, and I don't know that they'll come back. I mean, that's what I don't think people fully understand is that yes, people love New York City. They've grown up there. It's generations. They can trace their people back, their family back to Ellis Island. You know, that they love the city, and they're leaving, and they're not coming back. And it's simply because of one cycle of one group of people who have come in and decided that we are going to destroy this city in a vision that we think is going to be utopian, but we're going to destroy this city as far as the American dream is concerned, and that's not going to return.
Yeah. And that's what bothers me the most about La Crosse is that it's on exactly the same trajectory.
Correct.
You can see the revolving door of criminals in the jail, out of jail, in jail, out of jail. And how many times is this going to happen before someone gets killed or seriously injured because they just keep letting the same people back onto the streets? But not only that, how are you supposed to run a business in La Crosse when you've got homeless people sleeping on your sidewalk? You think any patrons are going to walk through that door?
Nope.
Hell no.
Nope.
It's how do you run a business? And you can see the revolving door of businesses too.
Yep.
A business starts up, a few months later they leave.
Right.
You can't run a business in an environment like that.
You and I are both old enough, and he was in the news this week, Mayor Rudy Giuliani, health issues, and fortunately he pulled back from the deathbed this week. But he's old.
That is a tough dude, man.
He's a tough guy. There's no question. But you and I are both old enough to have watched what happened in New York City before him, and how there were the Skid Rows and the porn shops all through Times Square, and what a disaster New York City was. And in 2 terms, the guy turned the city around and really created that shining city on the hill that George Bush used to talk about. New York City was our shining jewel. And since then, they've destroyed it. Mamdani, in the next 2.5 years, 3 years that he has left in his term, will destroy the city. Now, we have the resilience in this country to bounce back. And once another Giuliani or somebody like that comes into New York and says, we're changing things, maybe people will come back. Maybe some of that will restore itself. And it won't, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not like the city is going to implode. It's going to continue. It's continuing to go, but the
crime goes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Businesses leave.
And the lost potential growth that could have occurred, that would have occurred, is what you can't really define, other than the fact that we do have a couple of years under Giuliani where we saw things turn around. You do have instances where a government that is not such heavy-handed socialist, Marxist driven, and basically simply provides for services, allows for growth in this country like, well, no one's ever seen in the world history.
Yeah.
And that's what has truly made the United States of America the greatest nation in the history of the world. And I understand the disdain that some people have for that, and the fact that they wanted to try to destroy it. And they've elected some of their people.
Yeah.
And so they will, in pockets of this country, try to destroy it. But the crisis that I think is way down the road is that when these cities, Seattle, New York, Chicago even, LA, You know, that we have an interesting mayoral race in LA. I mean, as things like this come about, and you continue to see this socialist Marxist Democrat system develop, they will go bankrupt. There's nothing they can do to stop that.
Right.
People who are actually paying the bills are going to leave. All right. They will go bankrupt. Where are they going to get their money? They're going to want to get it from the federal government. They're going to want to get it from our tax money. And that's when thinking people, as Ayn Rand used to say, you know,
right.
he editorialized on, thinking people will basically say, no, you're not going to take my money, and there will be financial secession from the union.
Yeah.
I mean, we won't have necessarily the states seceding, but as we even talked about back in 2000 in the Tea Party group, we were like, you know what, you tell us what you want us from our income taxes, and we'll send it to you at the end of the cycle if we think that you're doing it the right way. There will be, I mean, again, as we said here before, we're the United States of America, not the United People. Doesn't mean we have to all continue to fund a debacle that we see in some of the other states.
Right. So that's a good point. Well, in California, it makes me wonder as well if, to your point, if the federal government, if enough sane people say, no, we're not going to bail you out.
Right.
You suffer the consequences of your own stupidity. What if China does? What if China bails out of California?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I don't know. It's a fantasy, but what happens then? Because, I mean, ultimately, California is communist now anyway.
Right.
Maybe they bring in Chinese communists to help pay off their debts and put a Chinese base there, too.
Yeah. Well, two things. China isn't exactly an economic stronghold right now anyway.
Good point.
They are also on a death spiral. Their demographics alone are making it very difficult for them to continue to be the strong force that they believe they are. Number two, we do have laws and situations in this country where that foreign influence, foreign base, things like that would not be allowed. I mean, it just, you know, the federal government and other states would not allow that to occur.
Yeah, that's a good point, because even now, the Wisconsin, they have that law about Chinese owning property.
Farmland, yeah, especially, yeah. And then finally, the idea that China will be bailing us out. Who do you think owns all of our debt? I mean,
good point.
I mean, they've been bailing us out for 30 years, 40, 50 years.
No, that's a good point.
You know, I mean, the great LBJ's Great Society had to be funded somehow.
Maybe our friend Dana Auer will write a post-apocalyptic novel about that happening.
There you go. There you go.
It does. It probably is just all fantasy, though.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, in the end, you know, it is a financial bailout, and if those bills become due, you know, and China says, all right, we collect, we simply say no. It's like, and that's when you get a war. I mean, that's what drives a war is economic more than anything.
Economics and resources.
Correct.
Yep.
So, you know, when we say, yeah, we're not paying you the bills that you, or the money that you loaned us to keep this ridiculous budget afloat, we're simply not going to do it. Then at that point, you have an economic collapse.
Well, we've solved some geopolitical issues now across the world. Let's talk about the state of Wisconsin a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Well, actually, it has national ramifications that come home here in the state with the president, you know, another assassination attempt on his life. Yep. And then we have this gentleman, Kirk Bagstad, from up north in Minocqua Brewery, a very vocal, woke Marxist type. Right. And now he's running for governor.
Yes.
He wants to be our governor.
Right.
Tell me more about your feelings on that.
Yeah, well, first of all, Kirk lives in the People's Republic of Madison. I mean, he's got this brewery that's up in Minocqua that nobody in Minocqua drinks the beer. So, I mean, he's a wealthy individual, and so he can shoot his mouth off, much like Penzi Spices. And, you know, I have no problem with that. First Amendment rights to say whatever you want, to a point. I can't yell fire in a crowded movie house.
Well, you can, but there are consequences for doing it.
Exactly right. And in the same sense, I can't provide you an incentive to go shoot the president.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did.
Well, it's even deeper than that. Some of his finances, I think, it sounds like Dan O'Donnell, especially. I've been listening to his stuff, and he's doing a pretty deep dive into what's going on. He doxed the Secret Service agents' information, and I mean, the guy's a nut job.
He's begging to be. I mean, what he wants to be is a martyr. he wants to be set up as the martyr,
I bet
and
you're right.
there are deranged individuals, especially. Well, I mean, we have a few of ours. I can't name them. I can't really point them out as to those who would have.
Because we shun them.
Yeah, exactly. We shun them, and it's not like they tried to take out Obama or
No.
Biden or Evers or anybody. It's not. None of that has occurred.
Right.
On the other side, let's just say their passion is a little stronger. They're a little crazier, and they're willing to do some of the things that they have been told by their leaders to do. That, we have a Hitler in the White House. We have Nazis running the country.
Yeah.
We have the worst possible scenario has occurred in the United States, and it is incumbent upon each of us to turn that around. And that slips into somebody's head and plants seeds of real action that is criminal. And
well, they're ultimately inciting violence. And the interesting thing, this is what now, the it's the third attempt now, right?
Yeah.
So 3 attempts now.
Right.
So in the world of computer science, when we see data trends, for example, if it happens once, it's an anomaly.
Right.
If it happens twice, it's a coincidence. If it happens 3 times, it's a trend.
Yep.
There is a trend on the other side of the aisle toward violence, and not one of the corporate media has come forward and apologized for the kind of rhetoric that you're talking about.
Right.
They just keep it coming more and more.
Well, okay, now you're going to open up a whole new can of worms. But I mean, this goes back to the corporate media and just and reporters in the general mainstream media. And when I talk about that, I talk about the markets that are 25 or 30 or greater. The bigger markets, because they're all within eyesight of going to New York or going to the big corporate media places, but not one of those individuals. I mean, again, we've talked about this. Where did a lot of them get their training? Columbia University. What's one of the biggest universities that had the most anti-Semitic protests and anti-American protests? Columbia University. I mean, they are training a bunch of Marxists who now, I mean,
it's not a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. It has been in place and been trained for years. Yeah. And the thing that struck me when I was first in the legislature back in 95, 96, 97, and I would point out to some of the reporters back then, and it was relatively tepid, their bias, and I would point out their bias. They saw none of it. It's not so much that they didn't agree with me. They just didn't see any kind of bias. I would say that today, you go and talk to any of the reporters at CNN, even MSNBC or now, or whatever whatever they're calling themselves now.
Mark Levin calls it MSLSD.
Yeah, there you go. Whatever. Any of those. Ask the reporter about their story and just basically take any story that they went with that night and point out how remarkably biased it is with just the tone of voice, with the words that they've chosen, anything like that. They will not see it. They do not understand what you're talking about. It is a completely different, I mean, we've talked about how we have 2 completely different Americas, depending on where you get your information. That's really what it is. And
it's getting worse because the more technology that will filter your side, your viewpoint, you won't see the other viewpoint. Correct. Because it keeps filtering the things that it knows you like.
Right. We were watching the news the other day, my wife and I, and it was in Minneapolis. It was stories about Minneapolis and how they're protesting ICE and how they were protesting the fact that they had come to get this guy who had stabbed 2 women. A illegal alien who had stabbed 2 women. And she's like, how in the world can people defend this individual? I said, because they didn't hear that. They don't hear that on any news. They've heard that an illegal alien who struggled to get here, who tried to get across the border to try and get to a better
Maryland
life.
dad.
Yeah, whatever. They didn't hear a word about any type of illegal activity, and they certainly didn't hear anything about stabbing. You do not hear that in the other media. That's why you have 2 Americas. One who understands what's going on because we hear the full story. Yeah. Granted, it's slanted to our side as well.
But we seek out both sides. We want to have the full context.
Right. They do not hear. If you read the St. Paul Pioneer Press, go to the St. Paul Pioneer Press and put in Walt's fraud. You know, I mean, just any combination. I don't think you'll see any article
No.
other than the latest one that shows that Governor Walz has found some fraud in
Yeah.
Minneapolis.
Well, and that's the thing I talk about over and over again. It's these lies of omission.
Correct.
It's what they choose not to tell us. They want to hide things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not sure that it's, you know, it goes back to the whole Hipsch's observations on government and the whole, anytime you think it's a conspiracy or an ineptitude, it's ineptitude every time. I'm not sure there's a conspiracy amongst each of them. This is what they believe.
Right.
This is what they know.
They just have blinders on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what, and they can't understand why we would think that the fraud at the Leering Center in Minneapolis would in any way be newsworthy as it related to Tim Walz. Why would that have any impact on anything we should discuss in a story that's going on in Minnesota?
Yeah. No, and it is a good point. And I think just even at the local level, we could talk about the idea of the way the bias manifests itself. The Democrat Party put out a press release and filed a complaint against one of the candidates for county board, a person who happens to be a Republican and a conservative.
Yeah.
And the local media took it word for word from their press release. The Democrat point of view, word for word, did not contact anyone from the other side to get the full spectrum.
Right.
You know, there are two sides to every story.
Yeah.
My mother would tell me this all the time.
Right.
There are two sides to every story. Yeah. But don't tell that to the local media. They only care about one side.
Right. I'll sum all this up because, you know, my angst with the mainstream media has been there for 30 years. I mean, I have not actually held and read the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel since I think 1998, mainly because when I was first in the legislature, I was in meetings with the Journal-Sentinel reporters. I would sit there and know what happened there. And I'd read the story the next day and have no idea what they were talking about because it had no impact on, there was no reflection of what actually happened in that meeting.
Wow.
And I was like, this is insane. You guys are making this up. And that was just, again, that was 30 years ago. That's relatively tepid compared to the blatant stuff that we have today.
Well, I remember you always telling me the stuff you see in the media isn't what really happens when you're in Madison.
Nope.
You know, you were in the meetings, you're working with people across the aisle, trying to get things done for the benefit of the state and for the taxpayers. But the media is never going to tell you that story because it's just too nice. It's not sensational enough.
Right.
Because all they care about is selling advertising. Let's be honest. That's all they care about.
They have to, and it's why I've completely understood what has happened with the print media, because the only place that print media still survives is the major cities. Yeah. And the major cities are populated by loony leftists. You know what I mean? So you got to write for the loony leftists. I get it. You get your own rag. Fine. We get Fox News. We get talk radio. We get everything else. You get the newspapers. Why any conservative continues to get any kind of information from a print newspaper in any part of this country, I have no idea.
I still get the Tribune because I like mocking them.
Okay, good for you. Have fun with that. You know, that's fine. Continue to fund their organization.
I know. That's what I feel bad about it. I thought about it like, do I really want to send them the subscription money for this and fund it? I will not. Well, every now and then I'll send them a letter to the editor if it's important enough that I want those few lunatics to read it. But most of the time, I just put it on Cooley Conservatives because I get more people watching that than people reading the paper anymore.
Right.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. I do like to keep up to speed about what they're talking about because I want to know what the other side is thinking. Yeah. And that's exactly what they do. They copy word for word from the Democrats' talking points. So now I have one side of the story.
Yeah, you have their side of the story. It's easy to find. Yeah, either that or you go to Rick Solom's show. He's the other guy who...
I can't stomach that.
You know, he'll just tell you exactly what the Democrats... And bring on all of the Democrats.
And then bring them on, too, yeah.
Right.
No, it's crazy with the corporate... The local media it's a joke.
It's really sad because, again, when I first got in, we had really good reporters. I mean, guys who I can name, you know, Rusty Cunningham, Dick Mile, Scott Hackworth, Dave Soley, really good, you know, Ann
Mike
Hoppy.
Hayes on WIZM was the best.
Yeah, I mean, he was the best. God rest his soul, because he was a terrific individual. But I mean, all of these individuals who really wanted, well, first of all, they had what was best in the community in mind, and they wanted to provide information, especially Mike Hayes. Yeah. He wanted to provide all the information available to the people that would listen and care. And
they were curious about both sides.
Exactly. Right.
That was the thing that we're missing right now.
Right. It's completely gone. Completely gone. They I don't know, I ran for office because I wanted to change the world. I wanted to, I wanted to get out
Yeah.
there, and now the people who want to change the world go into reporting.
Mhm.
That is not. There's a disconnect there. The reporting and news media was never supposed to be the ones who were crafting the new or crafting the news. They were reporting the news. They weren't making policy. They were reporting on policy.
Yeah.
And that's changed. Obviously, you go back to William Randolph Hearst and all the yellow journalism back in the day. I mean,
Right.
that existed back then. It wasn't. I'm not sure that it was as expansive and as universal as it is today.
That is a really good point, and it kind of falls back to what we were talking about with some of the scriptures. There is nothing new under the sun.
No.
We see these cycles again and again throughout history,
Right.
and we're just living under another one, another yellow journalism kind of cycle.
Absolutely. And it goes back to the whole, if you don't understand it or if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, and that's another thing too that I put on the board to talk about is this recent May Day,
Yeah.
this May Day thing.
Right.
And the way I think about this, I hadn't talked about it on the podcast yet, but I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong about this, but they take a Marxist holiday,
Right.
It's from the Soviet Union basically, and
Completely.
the whole communist Marxist kind of concepts.
It's celebrating the revolution.
Basically, that's
Right.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they take this day and they decide they're all going to call in sick at work
Right.
to take the day off and have marches, basically anti-capitalism marches.
Right.
Okay. I understand. They have a point of view.
Yep.
The Mueller axiom. Let's turn the tables. So they want to take a day off of work.
Mhm.
Well, the rest of us are working our butts off and paying taxes and
Right.
doing all the things that we do.
Well, and who's they? Who took those days off? Who was that?
Well, the biggest one was the teachers' unions.
Absolutely.
It was the teachers' unions that are the most Marxist people in our state, especially.
Correct. Absolutely. The professors, the teachers, the individuals that, as we've talked about, have trained up the people who are now
From the Columbia universities
Right.
and all that. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's been spreading for years, like you said.
Yeah.
But using the Mueller axiom, let's turn the tables.
Yeah.
What would happen if, say, those of us who are for smaller government
Mhm.
were to take a day off of paying our taxes
Sure.
and just really push back on all the abuses of government by deciding we're not going to pay our taxes today? Then what would
You
happen?
go to jail.
I think you're right.
Yeah, you would. I mean, the interesting thing is that that other Republicans would say you should go to jail.
And the media would report on it day after day after day after day.
Absolutely, yeah, no question. If we went on strike from taxes, if we went on strike from the role that we have to play in funding this debacle that we see in New York and Seattle and other places like that, and as I mentioned a little earlier, if they at some point require me and my federal tax money to bail out Seattle or New York or any of these other lunatic cities, then you will see people who are going to
tax
say,
revolt.
no, we're not doing that. And
I noticed today, Epoch Times is reporting in Ohio, they're coming close to having a tax revolt for property taxes because they're so ridiculous what's happening.
Yeah.
The schools are losing enrollment, but yet the taxes keep going up. We see it here in Holman too.
it's happening all across Wisconsin. There's
Yep.
no question. I mean, that is not a difficult thing to go back and look at as far as how much, we're spending per pupil, how much we're spending in education in general, where that money is going, and how that has changed from the last 20 years. Let's go back to when Steve Doyle was first elected. Go back,
In the 80s?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, how much has that gone up over the last 20 years, and what's happened to enrollment? What's happened to inflation? I understand costs go up. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I mean, the one that is the most egregious, the one that there is no way to defend is tuition. There's no way to defend what has happened to
Right.
tuition as far as inflation, as far as the cost and the value of the product, as far as the number of people who are coming in. It's not like our schools are exploding with population that we need so many
Right.
more professors, so many more buildings, anything like that. That's not the case. And so you cannot defend the fact that the teachers union and so many others have simply convinced so many people that we need to throw more money at it. And that's what May Day was all about, was getting back to the idea that we need to, as a collective body, in the theory of collectivism, We are going to take over the government. We're going to take over the people who are producing and make sure that they are paying their fair share. I love that phrase, paying their fair share, because it's much like fair maps. Fair share, fair maps is in the mind of the beholder, and the beholders on the other side are nuts.
And they have some crazy imaginations on the other side. And this again, it adds up to the kind of concerns that I've had for a while now, where things are going. And as we were talking about before, they'll just keep confiscating more, taking more out of my paycheck.
Right.
And maybe it comes to the point when they start taking our 401ks away from us. I spent a lifetime saving up my 401k so that I can retire someday.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, someone with their little magic Marxist wand decides it's theirs now, not mine anymore.
Right.
That's my concern, because we've seen that happen in other places around the world.
Yeah.
They just Venezuela was a perfect example.
Absolutely.
They just took everyone's wealth.
Right.
Regardless of, they didn't have any rules. They just wanted it, so they took it.
Yep.
That is my concern of the trajectory that our nation is on right now.
Right. Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
And people have to get off their couches to prevent it.
Well, all they need to do is vote.
Exactly.
That's all
it's so simple.
Yeah, we have candidates who are willing to run. We'll have some candidates that are announcing here in the Cooley region. You have to understand the importance of making sure that the individuals that you're voting for are not simply going to be people that you like. It's like, oh, you know what? I like this particular person. I've known that person for a long time. I've voted for that person several times. That doesn't matter. What party are they and what's that party doing? Because when you...
What do they stand for?
Exactly. Not even what does that person stand for? Because I think we have a very good example in Steve Doyle here in the La Crosse area. He will come out and he will say that he is bipartisan. He will sweet talk you in every which way.
Words.
And more importantly, he'll vote that way. He will vote that way when it makes no difference. When it was going to pass with 70 votes, he'll be number 71.
Right.
Okay, well, that's great. Fantastic. Good for you. But what is your party moving toward? What do you want? There is no difference between a Francesca Hung, who is the Democrat socialist candidate for governor, and Steve Doyle when it comes to the policy that they're going to try to get through Madison.
Yeah,
because
they're all on the same side.
If Francesca Hung is going to put forth a socialist model, who do they expect to vote for that in the legislature? Obviously, is Steve Doyle.
Yeah,
and if he's the 51st vote out of 50, you think he's going to be that person? Heck yeah. He's going to be that 51st person. And you can name, I'm picking on Steve because we know Steve around here.
Right.
But there's that one Democrat in all different parts of the state and all different parts of the country that you know, that you like. That who's running against Derek Van Orden? Rebecca
Cook.
Cook, there we go. Rebecca Cook. Wonderful, sweet gal. You know, good farm girl.
Waitress.
Exactly. All that kind of stuff.
Forget about the millions of dollars she spent.
Right. And the millions of dollars she's getting from the socialists on the East Coast. How do you think that person is going to vote when it comes to the leaders that are going to be running the Congress if they take the House? Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House, and she will vote for him. Yeah. And he's crazy.
And that agenda is nuts.
Absolutely.
Well, I've said it multiple times, and I think it's probably worth bringing up again. I believe that the Democrats are returning to their roots. And their roots, I'm talking about the slaves, the Confederacy.
You mentioned that.
They were so adamant about defying federal law in the 1800s. They defied the federal law that freed the slaves, and they started the Civil War. And today, here we are again with them defying federal laws and creating sanctuary states and cities. They're doing the same thing. It's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
They are who they are.
Right.
And now they're just showing it to everybody.
Yep.
And if we do not stand up, get off our couches and elect people who are on the right side of things, we're going to lose.
Yeah, no question. Biggest curse that we live under is we get the government we deserve.
Yeah.
And if we don't do anything, we will deserve what we get.
That is a really good point. That's a good way to look at it. And we're going to get it good and hard after this spring election. Our property taxes are going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. They're going to go up again, especially here in La Crosse County.
Yeah.
But hopefully things will work out for us in the fall. Speaking of which, the Republican convention's coming up in a couple of weeks. And I know, obviously, Tom Tiffany will be there as our governor candidate. Anything else I should look for when I'm going to that convention?
Well, I think the thing that I always look for at a convention is the level of excitement. You know, we need we need people who are enthusiastic, who are not only willing to get off the couch, and they obviously were because they're at the convention, but they're not there to criticize other Republicans. You can find reasons that
Good point.
a Derek Van Orden or a Scott Fitzgerald or even Tom Tiffany aren't exactly what we want. You can look at the Turning Point guys, and you can look at the other different groups, and they'll criticize everybody other than Donald Trump. They'll criticize everybody out there, and tearing down others, I guess, makes you feel better. But again, if you tear down a Republican to the point that a Democrat gets elected, if you are so pure that we are going to make sure that we are in a minority, but we have the right people there, you have zero influence.
Yeah.
You have every reason to believe that this country is going to continue to go down a spiral, and the people who are there that you elected that make sure they were pure will scream from the mountaintops and have zero influence and zero opportunity to make any kind of change. We need to make sure that every Republican on the ballot is elected. If you're voting for a Democrat, or if you're not voting, if you're a Republican not voting, you are voting for that Democrat.
Exactly.
That's all there is to it. And it's, again, the outcome of the November elections is on us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on them. It's not, oh, they just worked harder, they had more money, anything like that. No, it's get out and vote.
Yeah.
And vote blindly Republican, because the Democrats right now, even the nice ones that you like, are supporting the lunacy.
Well, it's not even blindly voting Republican. It's just taking, Dana Hour was on the other day, and we're going to publish that episode. Actually, it's going to be Wednesday, tomorrow, as we're speaking. But Dana Hour said he likes to take, I think it was a Benjamin Franklin practice, where he splits a paper into like a cross, and he starts putting pros and cons. Mm-hmm. Here's the pro of doing this, or here's the pro of or the con of doing this. Right. But I think when it comes to elections, something I've done for primaries is I will list the issues that are important to me. It'll be economy, national defense, law and order. And then I'll go down the list of the candidates who I know are going to be on my ballot, mostly the primary, because I'm, feeling out the Republican side of things. Right. And I'll start putting check boxes next to the names I know I can trust. Yep. And you kind of you start to get that feeling about, okay, this guy's more on my side than this guy. Right. Even though I really like this guy, we went out for a couple of beers once, but this other guy is more on my side when it comes to some of these issues. You start to get a feel for, okay, where do I want to cast my vote now? Right. And I think you nailed it, because it comes down to, you're not doing it blindly. You're doing it based on logic and reason. Right. And I think it was Ronald Reagan who would say, don't let your 80% ally become a 20% enemy. If all you focus on is that 20% that you don't agree on, you're completely missing the point that you agree on 80% of all the other important things. And by blindly, I was talking about the general election. You're talking about the primary. Oh, I got you. Obviously, in a primary, you pick the person that you think is going to be good. And this is a very good example, because let's say you've gone through and there's A and B. And in A, you have 7 of 10 items that you really agree. And on the other side, there's 3, but there's 5 that really concern you about that other person. That other person wins the primary. Are you staying home? No. If you stay home, if you don't like the fact that B won over A because you were going to support A, you've given us a Democrat leadership and a Democrat country and a socialist Marxist government. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's a good point. When we get to the general election, there is not a Democrat on the ballot in 2026 that you should be voting for. No, not necessarily because that's a good or bad person. I'm not suggesting that. That might be a very good person, but the direction of that party is in a spiral that is going to take this country down to its knees. Yeah, that's 100% true. We cannot continue to allow it. I'm glad you said it that way too, because it does remind me, and hopefully I don't disappoint too many people by saying this, but in 2016, I was actually doing doors for Ted Cruz. Yeah. He was the guy for me. Right. Total constitutionalist. I thought he was the best. I was Marco Rubio. Yeah. Yeah, he was. Diane was Marco Rubio. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we were, I was helping out, like on the doors, on the ground, helping out Ted Cruz. Diane was sending checks to Marco Rubio. But the point is, Trump won that primary. He did. And I got behind him 100% after that decision was made. Right.
actually, Wisconsin, Ted Cruz was the last guy to beat Donald Trump.
That's
in the
right.
primary. So Ted Cruz won Wisconsin. But
You're welcome, Ted. I helped.
Right. It's Chris Mueller got that over there. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, that's exactly the case. But you're right. If you liked Ted Cruz, I liked Marco Rubio. I actually was speaking out against Donald Trump in 2016 because I said a conservative from Manhattan is a contradiction in terms.
Right.
There's no way in the
That
world.
was my concern,
Exactly.
too. Is he really conservative?
There's no way he's going to possibly live up to everything he's saying. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
He's done it he's done it more than I expected.
But back then, we had no idea.
Back then. And Paul Ryan was the speaker. I was like, now we're going to saddle Paul Ryan with a rhino, a true rhino in the White House, and the Democrats will have the Senate. It's going to be a disaster. And so I did not support Donald Trump in 2016. I couldn't wait to vote for him in 2020 and 2024.
Exactly.
You know, so
isn't that amazing how it all plays out? But again, I mean, to your point, it's the idea of unifying. We might disagree on a few things, but the things we agree on are tremendous. Let's focus on the things we do agree on. Number one, that we love the Constitution and we love this country.
Right.
The other side doesn't.
Nope.
The other side wants to tear apart the Constitution. I was going through the list a couple weeks ago on the podcast. There's like 3 or 4 majorly anti-gun legislation that they're writing in the Democrat Party.
Oh, yeah.
If they win the Senate and the Assembly in the state of Wisconsin, that's the kind of stuff that we're going to get.
Yep.
We have got to defeat them.
No question. Look what Rhode Island is passing. I mean, they're shutting down all kinds of access to weapons. I mean, the Second Amendment means nothing to them.
Minnesota is the same way. They're just destroying the Second Amendment day after day.
Correct.
And that's what's going to end up happening here in Wisconsin if we stay on our couches.
Right.
We've got to work hard.
I joke sometimes that I follow every law I agree with. You know, if I agree with that law, I follow it. And then it's a joke that I use, but the other side isn't joking. They don't agree with the fact that illegal aliens shouldn't be here.
That's what I said.
So they're going to do all they can. They're going to fight that. And as you said, they're going back to their roots. They're going to continue to oppose those things that are in statute, that have been upheld by law and in the courts. Yeah. And they're going to continue to just disregard it, and they're going to do it violently. Yeah. Because violence is what really wears down opposition. You
know, and that reminds me too, just this last podcast, I talked a little bit about the Chris's Corner side of things. And it was the Freedom Honor flight that happened just, what was it, a week or 2 ago?
Yeah.
And it reminded me when I got to participate with my dad's Freedom Honor flight. And, you know, he told me, and I read his quote word for word on the podcast, but it was the idea when he got back from Vietnam and he flew through O'Hare and the civilians spitting on him and calling them names and just the vile way that they treated them. Right. It's exactly the same thing they're doing to our law enforcement right now.
Absolutely.
It is sick. It is wrong. And we should never stand for it.
Correct.
There should be consequences.
No question. No question.
Yep. No, it's going to be interesting to see but this is a majorly important election.
Yes, it is.
And that's the other thing too. Everyone says it every election cycle. It's the most important election of our lifetime.
Right.
The thing is, it usually is. Every election has major consequences.
The stakes seem to go up every single time. I'm not as concerned about this one, honestly. I mean, 2024, I thought was absolutely a breaking point for this country. Kamala Harris gets elected, and I don't know how we pull out of it. I don't know how. I mean, we're in a tailspin that I don't know that we can recover from. I think 2028 will be important. In Wisconsin, again, going back to the fact that we can leave. I mean, if in Wisconsin, if Francesca Hung gets elected governor, which is, you know, as it sits right now, she's going to be their nominee.
I'll be looking for property in Iowa.
Exactly. I mean, people will be leaving. You know, that's all there's to it. And we're not going to go to Minnesota, obviously, but
heck no.
Yeah, I mean, it's already not the greatest place in the world to retire anyway.
Right.
So people will leave. I mean, anybody who has the means is already in Arizona or they're in Florida. Yeah. You know, and at least 6 days and 1 month out of the or 6 months and 1 day out of the year. So you're going to continue to see that. And this is, again, Chris, I don't understand the end game that the Democrat socialists are thinking. That they think that they are going to simply come in, they're going to implement this utopian policy, and they're going to have never-ending supply of money.
Yeah, and then what?
Yeah, and then
they
what?
Never tell you that.
Right. We can't run a deficit in Wisconsin. Our Constitution doesn't allow it. No. We don't have the structure. We don't have a means for it. So I don't know what they're going to do when they run out of money, and they will run out of money. You know, they will shut down the government.
Yeah, Thatcher said it well. I think it was her that said problem with socialism is you always run out of other
Yeah.
people's money.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be scary where if we lose,
Mhm.
but we have a great opportunity in front of us. I think Tom Tiffany's a great candidate.
I think so too. I think he's a fantastic candidate. It is really kind of along the lines of what Wisconsin needs right now.
Yeah. No, he's got Western Wisconsin values,
Yep.
Northern Wisconsin, I guess, experience.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And I like the way he's doing a lot of social media.
Yeah.
I think he's really getting his message out
They're doing great.
a lot. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen polls or anything. What do they look like these days?
I haven't seen a head-to-head because what candidate do
Oh,
you
good
choose?
point.
Yeah. On the other side. Which
But what about name recognition? Is Tom Tiffany well known enough in this state?
it's growing up. Yeah,
Okay.
it's going higher. I think that, the only value that I see to primaries is name recognition because that
Exactly.
it does fire it up. But now you can get your name out so easily with social media, and I think his ads are doing very well that way. Again, they're running the race that we wished the Supreme Court candidates had
Yeah,
run.
that's a good point.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that it requires. But I think that Tom's going to be a very good candidate. I don't see which candidate's coming out of the Democratic side. I really don't. And I would not say, no matter who it is, I would not say that they can't win. I would say anywhere from Francesca Hung to any of the others. I think any one of them can win. And it's, it is a concern that we have sunk to that point where someone who is a true Democrat socialist and proud of it. I mean, the top two individuals over on the other side are Francesca and Mandela Barnes, both of them who are trying to out-left each other.
Yeah. Mandela Barnes with his anti-law enforcement history and Francesca Hong. I mean, you go look at her legislation, anti-gun.
Right.
She would tear up the Second Amendment in a heartbeat.
Indeed.
It's crazy.
Yep.
Well, my friend, 57 minutes in. Anything else that the listeners need to know about before we get out of here?
No, I think it's going. We're about to slide into the dog days of summer, and thank God, not a day too soon. I'm ready for some nice warm weather, but it's this time when your victory squad really makes its money. It really proves its mettle, and it's those days when in June and July and August, when there's so many other things to do, that you take just a half hour out of the day, and just go talk to a neighbor, pick up a phone, make sure that they know that Tom Tiffany is our candidate. Derek Van Orden has to be returned.
Yes,
all those people.
Great point.
All those people. We've from top to bottom. We have a great candidate against Steve Doyle. We have a very good candidate in whatever race.
Yep.
Those are the things that you need to stay on top of and make sure that people are going to be willing to vote. And that doesn't happen in November. It doesn't happen at the end of October. It happens in May and June and July.
That's right. The groundwork begins right now.
Right.
And as I said before, I really think about it in kind of the football analogy that I like to use. We've got to practice. We've got to get in the gym and exercise these muscles and practice, get the skills. Because like you said, you learn so much just by doing it, and the little mistakes you make along the way,
Right.
or maybe you have a conversation with somebody and you find out that maybe they're not somebody that's on our side.
Right.
Okay, well now we know.
Good to know.
We just cross them off the list and go on to the next one.
Right.
And that way we save time and money. Just skip over them next time.
Right.
But these are the important things, like just exercising these muscles, doing the practice, because that big game is just right around the corner, and we got to be ready for it. We can't get squashed again.
We need to prove to the rest of the state and prove to this country that we really do love this country as much as
Right on.
the other side does, because they are working. They are doing all they can for their vision of this country. That vision scares us.
Yeah.
But it's stronger than ours. We need to be able to show that our passion for this country and the American dream and the American experiment is as important and as strong today as it was when we first formed.
Makes me think, again, kind of going back to the things we read about in Scripture, because there's so many truths in there.
Right.
But if their hatred is so much stronger than our love, we got to work on that.
Big time.
We got to work on our love for this country.
Indeed.
That's a good point. Maybe we should all get out and do the Pledge of Allegiance more frequently.
There you go.
I'll start
nothing wrong with that.
doing that, restoring American liberty, rally around the flag more frequently.
Sounds good.
All right, Mike, thank you so much for being here today.
You bet.
All right.
Good to see you, Chris.
I want you